Bye. Thank you very much for being there. Rajiv has not joined, but I think he will join anytime. And Jayendra Tanna also has not joined. I hope he'll join pretty soon. These are all very busy people, and I'm very glad that they've agreed to make time for this particular event. Let me briefly tell you the object or purpose of this particular meeting. Idea is to examine how do we make this vibrant the heritage city a vibrant center for local and international tourism. How do we make it a hub for cultural action of exchanges of all kinds? How do we see that it presents a good lesson in heritage preservation and conservation? And most important, how do we see that the quality of life in this city improves because there are as many as 400,000 people living there in 300 and more poles. This particular webinar forms a part of a new sub-series we have started, and it is called Cities of Gujarat, under which we are doing 8 webinars discussing essentially development challenges of this cities. After we finish today is the third one on Ahmedabad. Then we do 2 on Baroda, and after that we are planning a 4-part series on cities of Maharashtra that includes Pune, Nagpur, and Nasik. This webinar series, as you know, is appropriately called Rethinking City, and today is 123rd episode. As many of you know, we have had over 500 experts, professionals, specialists, community groups, and concerned citizens from all over the world who have presented their views, ideas, perspectives, and solutions in more than 30 to 40 important urban themes and sub-themes, such as governance, finance, mobility, climate change, infrastructure, slum, housing, endless number of things, but we've done this. Let me also share good news today that we are unfolding some 20 more new webinars in the coming few months. In fact, today itself, we had a very important meeting, and that includes a series of 5 webinars on a versatile slum improvement project in Orissa. What is happening in big cities and small towns of Orissa has such potential for adoption and replication in other cities of the country who are struggling in terms of what to do with the slum issue, that we have named the whole series as Slums Are Solvable. And this is starting sometime next month. The second set of 5 webinars are with CityNet, an association of Asian cities with some 150 members in this part of the world. And this webinar series will focus on the climate change issues and share what big cities of Asia, such as Bangkok, Kuala Lumpur, Seoul, Yokohama, and Kathmandu are doing to address a very difficult climate challenge that they are facing. Before I wind up this introductory part, I think let me kind of come to the most important part, and that is, why are we doing these webinars? What is the purpose? What are we seeking to gain by doing this? And if you're doing this for last 3 to 4 years, and if this is 123rd webinar, there obviously must be a reason. And let me share it with you very quickly. This webinar series has 5 underpinning assumptions. Number one, that despite being engines of economic growth and center for culture, technology, knowledge, and global attention and investment, our cities are not in pink of health. We should remember this, that our cities are not in pink of health. And be that small or big cities, industrial or commercial district town or state capital. And whether we are looking at environment or infrastructure or governance or planning, anything that we may look at. Point is, our cities are saddled with major challenges. This is the first understanding we had when we started this series. The second one, which is equally important, the cities, the way they are and the way they are growing and developing, do not look like meeting the challenge of unprecedented urbanization India is witnessing. It is neither looks like providing safe and healthy quality of living to 870 million people we expect in our cities by 2050, 25 more years. We're talking about doubling of the urban population. And it also doesn't look like providing us enough to ensure 7 to 8% economic growth that we require to do away with poverty and also ensure India's position in the global community. That's the second reason. The third reason is this, that the government effort alone is not adequate to ensure healthy, livable, productive, inclusive, and sustainable cities. The government alone just cannot do it. Fourth point is, and this to me is very important, and this is the message I've been communicating for last 4 years, the wider society, the human capital outside the government system has the required skills, knowledge, experience, and even motivation to contribute meaningfully in search of alternative approaches and new solutions. And the fifth important consideration, which has made us do all this, is that we are fast running out of time. And we need better approaches, innovative solutions early, as the damage that is being caused by delay is enormous, and planet, nature, environment, and people are paying a huge price. So it was this particular 5-point background that we started this webinar series with. And therefore, this series is part of a wider national societal effort aimed to bringing in not only fresh ideas and new perspectives, but also new voices, new collectivism, new togetherness, new partnership, and new energy in articulating need and ways to rethinking our cities. That's why we call it rethinking our cities, both redefining the urban challenge and finding more effective ways to addressing it. So it is with this long introduction, and I'm sorry it's long, but it's very important. I always say that we don't want to miss wood for the tree, and therefore this important long introduction is necessary. With this introduction, I hand this over to Dr. Anil Roy. But Anil Bhai, before I do that, give me 1 more minute to introduce you.
Sir, please.
Dr. Anil Roy is a senior associate professor at SEPT University, Ahmedabad, with over 25 years of experience in urban studies and planning. He holds a PhD in urban geography from JNU, New Delhi, and a degree in urban and regional planning from SEPT University. Before he joined SEPT University in 2009, he worked with leading institutions like UNESCO, PRIA, and CSE in New Delhi. And currently, he's supporting a study on growth drivers of urbanization in Kerala as part of a Kerala Urban Policy Commission, government of Kerala. They just presented their outcome just day before on Sunday. So with that introduction, I hand this over to Roy Sahab. You have a remarkably rich panel, and you have 2 hours to do whatever you want to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kirti. It was a very generous introduction. I don't deserve all those. Anyway, thank you, panelists, for joining, all known faces, and we'd like to, call upon this particular discussion debate in order to understand the context of World Heritage City that Ahmedabad became first in India so far, and then second in line is Jaipur. And we have Shikha Jain here to provide some of these key information about World Heritage Cities and what is the process and how it brings out to be tag and then beyond tag. So that's and all the champions, those who are working in this area, Abhay Bhai and Rajiv, already involved in this process of doing a bit of continue this inscription that is World Heritage and Debashish, who has been the force behind. I've seen the process of 2017 inscriptions. We were all together at UNESCO and thinking of how to get these tags for India, at least for one city. Riyaz is already involved in architecture and urban things in Ahmedabad. Is a vast experience, and we'll be joined by other panelists online. So Jayendra Bhai and Narendra Somani. So we are waiting for them to join. Before we invite in a sequence that we have thought of, but we might change the sequence in order to accommodate and bring the vibrancy of discussion. So my job is quite easy. I'm not going to take much time. I'm trying to set the context so that we remain in the theme of this discussion. So I will have a couple of points, rather 5 points to set the context for the panelists, and panelists are free to go beyond these points and bring out the nuances of World Heritage Cities and how it continues and what could be done, what has been done already, all sorts of things. So let me begin with the idea of World Heritage Cities, that the UNESCO tag that is, cities are looking forward. There are 300 cities across the world. We got little later than Nepal, Sri Lanka, and Pakistan. Our neighbors got the World Heritage Cities earlier than India. Nonetheless, Ahmedabad is the first one to get into UNESCO's World Heritage Committee. Just to set the background, and panelists know about all these things. This is for the audience that I'm setting the context here. Is that UNESCO's criteria for selecting the cities or inscribing the cities into World Heritage Cities network or World Heritage Cities list are 3 or 4 points, which is like number 1 is the cultural criteria on which Ahmedabad city got the inscriptions done. There's natural criteria which doesn't fit into the city criteria, city per se, but it is for natural heritage. And then third one is very important about the integrity and the authenticity of the heritage that we are looking at. And third one was in the criteria, it's called protection and management. So 3 criteria utilized here for Ahmedabad and for all the cities which are going to be inscribed. And cultural criteria particularly talks about the masterpiece of human creation, which is the outstanding universal value of the architecture, the place, and the culture. So that's important. Also, it is the important interchange of the human value that happens. Outstanding example: building, architecture, and also the technical assemblage that they have. Outstanding human settlement. It goes beyond the architect. It also talks about settlement, land use per se, and directly and indirectly associate events. Some of these might not be the criteria of selection of Ahmedabad, but a couple of outstanding criteria has been applied for cultural criteria as well as management and protection. Integrity, we know authenticity and are the elements of the claim that the city makes. So there are least alteration of the original architect, original practices, whether it is town planning and other things. The fourth criteria is the protection management. The authorities should be ready with the promises and law and legislation that they will continue with this outstanding universal value with their legislation and the management plan. This was the four criteria which is applied. Rather, three criteria was applied. Natural criteria is not applicable for that. This is a very tedious process. People, the inscription is a very hard-earned, award or reward rather for the city. It takes much time. So there's 6-step process, and I'm not going to get into detail, but first step is to identify and the selection of the precincts or the area of the city. It cannot be the entire city. It will be part of the heritage cities or old city in this case happen. Then preparation of nominations of dossiers. Dossier is important, and it takes 1 year to 2 years time. And in this case, I think Debashish would correct me. Professor Vasavda was involved in writing the dossiers or collecting the dossiers, preparing the dossiers for AMC. And then submission of dossiers happens and its review. Evaluation of advisory body from UNESCO reviews that dossiers. But the process that the local authority sends it to a state government approves it, it gets into central government's cultural department, then central government of cultural department sends it to the UNESCO World Heritage Committee to evaluation. So these are quite tedious process. Then review happens for at least 6 months or beyond. Then World Heritage Committee decides whether to give this in their annual session, and in the post-inscription inspection happens. In between, the World Heritage Committee also would like to go and inspect whether the claim made in the dossiers is being there or not. So that's the process. Then I'm coming to what criteria was the principle for selecting Ahmedabad, or how Ahmedabad became the World Heritage City on 2 criteria basis. One was the World Heritage City tag came into Ahmedabad because of the cultural heritage and historical significance. That is the first and foremost. This includes the multi-religious, multicultural architectural styles, which is Islamic and Hindu, Jain. All architectural styles are well preserved here. Well preserved medieval town planning system. So it's both settlement level as well as architecture level building. So these two were the major qualifying elements of Ahmedabad, so that it got, and the criteria were, out of the 10 criteria number 2 and 5, which is cultural significance and outstanding traditional human settlements, became the key point for selection of Ahmedabad, and hence the medieval Islamic architecture, traditional residential cluster, which is pole, and the historical wall city became the elements for selection of. So this is the background where we got the 2017 inscription in World Heritage. Ahmedabad became the first Indian cities to get this tag. What it requires to, this I'm coming to now, the panelist here, what it requires to be maintaining the inscriptions. It's like there is a conditionality, there's a promise to fulfill, and hence this particular discussion is going to be in this line. And I some sort of prepared a couple of points that will guide us in discussion. Is number one, in order to be in the inscription for the UNESCO World Heritage tag, number one and foremost idea has to be the conservation and preservation management plan has to be set there, which is a regular monitoring, conservation plan and management system has to be in place. The second most important thing which we will debate now in the subsequent panel discussion is community engagement and participation. How much communities are being involved, participated for preserving, conservation, and enhancing the universal outstanding value of the heritage. Their stakeholders is important, and some of the stakeholders are already in the panel here with us. So that makes much more rich and lively panel discussion here. The community participation, the ICE is important, which is the education, awareness, and the communications with the community, other stakeholders, governments included. Third aspect is going to be to maintain these World Heritage Cities, also sustainable tourism. It should be very, very sustainable tourism management plan, tourism infrastructure in place, and revenue generation out of it. Whether or not we've been doing this in Ahmedabad, what has been done, I will come back to that, but this is what it is expected to be in the World Heritage Cities inscription. The fourth one is international cooperation, which is quite important, and Devas is a champion in bringing international corporations of AMC with it. And Rajiv is already witnessed, Shikha is already there. So there are many agents that has acted upon this, and city-to-city collaboration had happened with AMC and other European cities and other, World Heritage Cities. So UNESCO cooperation is going to be the first and foremost. The knowledge funding, so knowledge sharing is important, city to city. We have now Ahmedabad and Jaipur to learn from each other's experiences, because Jaipur is already been given. Now, the last point which I'm going to deal with is the regular reporting and evaluation. This is part of the governance system that happens. So these are the 4 points where 5 points that the inscriptions will be maintained if the local authority or the city as a whole. I would not say that this is the responsibility of local authority only. Peoples are also to be responsible for. I will also put on record that whatever has been done by the AMC, the local authority, is also to be, highlighted and discussed. Number one, the AMC has already prepared the conservation of historical building. They have listed, with the help of Intact, 2,696 buildings to be protected. That's the major work they have done. The list is already prepared. AMC is working on to preserve and conserve. The heritage management plan is already in place. Community engagement has been done in bits and pieces, but it has been there. Sustainable tourism protections, the logo is already there. Communities are involved in the scale and quantum we're going to discuss, and how to enhance this process is going to be one of the attention to discuss already. Least of them is the one of the last but not least is the formation of heritage cell, this Ahmedabad, and that's a precondition for inscription. So heritage cell, but it's a pre-inception process which prepared the dossier and submitted. So this is how I'm going to be, expecting the panelists and also the questions from the audience to guide upon. But panelists are free to go beyond these 5 points that I have spelled out and share your personal experiences, your personal engagement, your professional engagement towards heritage conservation and preservations, and how to go beyond this inscription. Inscription is just a tag, but how to go beyond, how to maintain it, and how to take it forward is going to be the major challenges. I'm stopping here and little bit, sequencing, if I may do it, and then we can change it according to our suitability. Debashish, I will invite Debashish Nayak, one of my old friend, to begin with, because he's been historically involved in the process of World Heritage Cities for Ahmedabad. He is the one who started the heritage walk, which is the very initial things that. Then I would invite Shikha Jain because she has a vast experience. We've been working. The brief instinct of my UNESCO is like Shikha and me were like going all out for Chandigarh, but didn't have. My experience comes from the failure of Chandigarh that did not succeed. Shikha will share that responsibility. All things happen, but nonetheless, Shikha will bring the Jaipur experiences also, first-hand experiences. And then I'd now involve and invite the two crusaders of Ahmedabad, Abhay Mangaldas and also Rajiv, which is like directly doing the things on the ground, and which is like on their own or the supports of the community and whatever possible manner. Then the two of the expected panelists will join, Jayendra Tanna ji and Narendra Somani ji. And also between between Riyaz and Jigna, I think we can, who will come last will decide later on. Jigna, I'm sorry, and Riyaz. So, and Riyaz will bring the overall perspective of urbanism and heritage in that. So this is the sequence of the panelists to go ahead. Kirti bhai, will you introduce or should I do the honor?
No, please go ahead. Please
Okay.
go ahead.
So let me invite Debashish to begin with, and briefly I will introduce Debashish. We were like the long introduction, Debashish has been veteran in this area. As I said, he started the World Heritage City. He's part of the UNESCO World Heritage Networks in India that we started in UNESCO 2007. He has many scholarship across the globe. He's widely traveled person. He's been doing heritage walks for not only Ahmedabad, for other cities in India. I mean, whatever I'm going to tell is going to be very less introduction, but he's well known in the field of heritage conservation, preservation himself, and Ahmedabad has benefited from his work. So I'm cutting short here, Debashish. I'm sorry to minimize the time. So over to you, and please go ahead. I'm fixing the time to manage 2 hours we have, but we've already done half an hour. So 10 to 15 minutes, if you can have all the panelists, then we'll save some time for Q&A from the audience, because audience expectations should also be there from these panels. Over to you, Debashish.
First, I like to thank Kirti bhai and the INHAF for inviting me for this panel, and which has been about talking about Ahmedabad can never stop. So it is thank you very much for that. And also, all the panelists, all of them are my friend, and they all know the journey. So that is a co-traveler who have been traveling this path for many years now, more than 30 years. And Professor Anil Roy, Anilji, that you have set the tone of the presentation. And I have a little when I first invited by Ahmedabad in '96, my first criteria was to look at what is heritage for Ahmedabadis, because Ahmedabad people have no idea about what Ahmedabad is. Like any city, it is not on Ahmedabad for any city. So I have now I have been presenting everywhere how Ahmedabad became a World Heritage City, which Professor Anilji has pointed out very correctly, that journey. And my presentation is a little longer, around 15 minutes, but I will cut it short. I'll just show you the glimpses of the journey, how this various initiative, which apparently looks not connected, but it is almost like an acupressure point process, which Rajiv and Abhay and Jigna and all of you knows about this process. But I'm just quickly, because there is a big audience who are watching this process, so I'll be showing you, and I'm now a little scared that whether I can start the screen share. So I'm just go to the screen. Yeah.
Yes, it's visible.
It's okay, you can see now?
Yes.
Can you zoom it? Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So my presentation name is, originally I talk about getting the city back to the people, basically how you connect the city to the community.
The walled city of Ahmedabad is more than 600 years old. It has some of the finest Indian Islamic monuments and exquisite Hindu and Jain temples. The intricately carved wooden havelis in the traditional neighborhoods, popularly known as pores, are of World Heritage value. Due to neglect, commercialization, and several social reasons, the old city was going through a rapid decline. Since 1996, Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation has initiated a people-oriented movement to revive this heritage city.
Then one important thing came about, the branding of the city. So the Discovery Channel did a very interesting 1 minute program on what is the city called Ahmedabad.
પો શબ્દ એ સંસ્કૃત શબ્દ પ્રતોલી ઉપરથી આવેલો છે. એનો અર્થ એ થાય છે કે વિવિધ સમૂહના લોકો એક સાથે એક જગ્યાએ રહે. પોળને એક કે બે પ્રવેશ દ્વાર હોય છે અને તેની સાથે જુદી જુદી ગલીઓ અને શાખાઓ જોડાયેલી હોય છે. પોળની શરૂઆત 11મી સદીમાં પાટણથી શરૂ થઈ. કાચકલાની હવેલીઓ એટલી સુંદર હતી કે તે સમયના સમાજને અનુરૂપ હતી. આ મકાનોની અંદર ચૂનાની દિવાલ હોય છે અને તે ખૂબ જ મજબૂત હોય છે. પંખીઓને ચણ માટે બાંધવામાં આવેલા ચબૂતરાઓ પંખીઓ પણ કુટુંબના એક સભ્ય છે તેમ દર્શાવે છે કે જ્યાં લોક ઉત્સવ પણ ઉજવાતા. પોળમાં રહેતા વિવિધ કુટુંબો એક વિશાળ પરિવારની ભાવનાથી.
So I normally freeze my last slide of this short film, where the first time 30 years back, people were so amazed that Discovery Channel actually came and shot a film in the old Ahmedabad. And eventually every place has stories. This Ahmedabad also has a story. So we highlighted with Amit Amalal painting, then also this whole earliest painting by a Dutch traveler, Philip Baldius, about Ahmedabad. So people of the city, like we have the whole old city is based on Vastu principles with 12 gates and 12 directions. And every city like Ahmedabad also have an amazing old photograph. So citizens had a right to know that these are the original views of the city and photographs. And this is the wall city, the 5 square kilometer. And this is around more than 300 poles. And every pole, every street in a pole is actually all the roads are north-south and all buildings are east-west facing. So there is a very wonderful structure. So Ahmedabad people should respect and understand. That was the major criteria. And Gujarat never had wood, but because of the Vastu thing, they have got all the woods. I met families in Calicut who actually used to supply wood to Ahmedabad. So there is a very interesting story how these buildings are built. And with this French support, we made this model to understand what is the structure of these buildings. And during earthquake, very few buildings collapsed in the old city. It is basically every building has a unique structure of like a ball bearing inserted into the walls, which really helps. So these are the beauty and this iconography, all this trade with China and all this cypress trees are there, which is also came from Persia. So there are many influences that are iconographically. So to make people understand this, we thought that there should be a walk which has been launched, which starts from a temple to the mosque. And you can see that how the people of Ahmedabad has been engaged to inaugurate the walk. So you can see that launching a walk was a process which to integrate all these forces. So this is that diagram which talks about how the role of heritage walk has been helping to achieve many other components. And like from where the walk starts, there's a walk within the temple, and visually it should be very rich. So the richness of the city, historic city, needs to be understood and appreciated by the citizen. Like we have got various poets, and we have created square based on those history of the city. And you can see that many other form of art, theater, poet, festivals, these have all been taken care of. But all these projects, most of the projects done in Ahmedabad, the initial days, were all funded by the community. That is a unique part of the Ahmedabad participation. This is another poet called Akha Bhagat, and how and this has been particularly inaugurated by Narendra Modi ji when he was the chief minister here. So how reviving those historic stories into a real life space and make the place better, like also reviving these rainwater harvesting systems. Then how this French person came. So we have so when the French ambassador came for the Heritage Walk, ultimately the municipality, they had an agreement, and they really for 7 years, they contributed a lot for preserving the heritage of Ahmedabad. We also have done a lot of financial experiment with HUDCO and many other financial organizations, because old buildings are not supposed to get any finance, any bank loan. So that was a major criteria. Then every project we did that time, the innovative financing was very important, like MP, MLA's budget, councillor's budget was not allowed. So we changed it. So every project we have on the public project, we had to put a poster to educate the community to become part of, to understand this whole process. Then also working with media played a very important role. And then we also worked with the children books. And so that is also a very important part. Also, we took the help of World Monument Fund to restore some of these community spaces. This Dwarkadish temple in the Kharia area, and you can see another temple called Hatkeshwar. So we basically targeted the community projects where community has to stay back and enjoy the space. So that was the major criteria, and these are all funded by the community, local community. That was the beauty of many other city in India. Ahmedabad is making very special. And also many of these houses, how the children show their houses to the people. Then we also engage different strata of the society. All the painters of Ahmedabad never seen Ahmedabad old city. So they have taken walks and they have started painting the old city. So there's a huge group of sculptors who displayed their project. This is also the media, how they have covered.
भारत का हर गांव, हर शहर अपने आप में कुछ ना कुछ इतिहास संजोए हुए है, और अहमदाबाद भी इससे अलग नहीं है। यहाँ की खासियत है यहाँ की हजारों हजार ऐतिहासिक हेरिटेज इमारतें, जो कि कुछ लोग मानते हैं कि पूरे भारतवर्ष में सबसे ज्यादा हैं। आइए देखते हैं किस तरीके से अहमदाबाद के लोग जुटे हैं अपने इतिहास को बचाने के लिए, और ऐसा करने में उनको क्या क्या दिक्कतें पेश आ रही हैं। Christian, what primarily made you to associate yourself with this old city of Ahmedabad?
I was very impressed by Ahmedabad for two reasons. The first reason is the city planning of old Ahmedabad, all the city. It's very, very interesting with the Poles. French-Indian work is not only French work. We are working together and try to find solutions how to preserve city planning.
आइए बात करते हैं कैसे परिवार से जो इन रिस्टोर्ड मकानों में रहते हैं।
क्या था, ये मकान पूरे 25 साल से अनयूज था, और हमने हेरिटेज डिपार्टमेंट का कांटेक्ट किया।
सभी लोगों ने बोला था कि क्या देख के मकान लिया है। जब ये हुआ तो सभी को मालूम पड़ा कि कितना अच्छा हुआ है।
आपको लगता है कि हम लोग जो है आम शहरी जो हैं अहमदाबाद के, वो अपनी शहर की इम्पोर्टेंस को शायद जानते नहीं है।
हाँ, ये बात सही है आपने। अभी भी अवेयरनेस जो है वो नहीं है अभी तक भी, फिर भी ऐसा होता है और सब लोग देखने आते हैं तो कुछ उसका फर्क पड़ रहा है, ऐसा लगता है।
And also these restoration projects have been documented to train the young new architects and engineers to understand the structure. The first bed and breakfast also got initiated. Everything actually connected with the policy change. And then many houses you could see been restored with added toilet and kitchen. And that was a very big challenge. You can see this before after photograph of so many buildings. I mean, this building, I really like this before after. And our major work is to add toilet and kitchen and restore the house. And some of these houses, this is done by Abhay, is now called Mangaldas Haveli 1. And it's been little gentrification, but many people like him came forward and took up such challenges. And this is the house where our French architect is to stay. Is now called French Haveli, now taken up by Rajiv, and now one of the very popular bread and breakfast place. This is very important, that how so many people in the community have taken heritage as their profession, which is a very good indicator to understand what is happening. Then one day, all the builders of Ahmedabad took the heritage walk. You can see the next day, two newspaper put a full page article about how the builders of Ahmedabad taking a visit to the old city. So various strategy and communities of the Ahmedabad, they really participated and they started giving awards. And there are this Rajiv and his three partners. They took up one of the Havelis to set up a cultural center. They went to Spain and Italy to see the processes, and Rajiv will talk about that and how they have created a whole generation of various skilled people. And then how to connect all this to the community. So we have started in Heritage Week, 19 November to 25 November. You can see this from 2007. Heritage Week has been happening regularly. And you can see that Birwa Qureshi and her husband, both of them have taken up the Sarkez Rosa as the water festival, which has been happening very regularly. Even Modi ji himself came for Sarkez Rosa water festival. And then there are many organizations who is using those Heritage Week as doing many events. So we connected that. There are many walks, like why Gandhiji came, how Gandhiji decided to be in Ahmedabad. So this whole walk on that. There is an earlier study on that. There's a children walk. There's a craft walk. There is a Jain heritage walk, because there are more than 400 years old Jain Desai is in the old city. So use the Jain pot system to design that. And so under this Jawaharlal Nehru Urban Renewal Mission, Government of India said that Ahmedabad has to be the model. So we traveled across India and continuously replicated Ahmedabad experience everywhere. And then we also went out, as Anil was mentioning, that we agreement with Germany, France, and Spain. We signed agreements, and Ahmedabad people donated a replica of a full-size Haveli with a delegation. So we have also done internationally. We thought that the Asian World Heritage City should come together, and it was allowed by the government, and we did an international conference. And that was the beginning of the dossier preparation. Government said, why not Ahmedabad? And Mr. Modi ji also edited this book for Times of India. All the articles published during this whole 20-25 years on the birthday of Ahmedabad, 600th birthday of Ahmedabad, a whole book has been released of all the articles published by Times of India. And we declared 12,000 building initially as a heritage building. And you can see this is the actual photograph of Bhadra Plaza, India's first heritage plaza. This is the actual photograph of the night it was inaugurated. Then we thought, where is the people? So we thought we must have a master's program in heritage management in Ahmedabad University. We did the international conference there. And then we started doing short courses on heritage walk management. And also we got a project from European Union to do a heritage startup program, cultural with Spain, with the Valladolid, city of Valladolid. This shows how you create a heritage ecosystem, and many case studies and best practice manual has been prepared. And all this initiative has been supported very well by the media. And we have the first batch for that, and they have displayed their the new heritage startup in Ahmedabad for projects. And ultimately in 2011, Ahmedabad got into the tentative list in the UNESCO. This is the old website of UNESCO. And then ultimately on 8 July 2017, Ahmedabad became declared as a World Heritage City. And this is by breaking the protocol. I think the head of UNESCO came to Ahmedabad and handed over the certificate. And it was very much enjoyed by the, celebrated by media. And then we have this family of Manik Baba, who apparently had an agreement with Ahmed Shah, and we started celebrating the birthday of Ahmedabad at Manik Buruj, which has been saved also by public funding. And so every year, 26 February, we celebrate the birthday of Ahmedabad with Manik Baba's family. I mean, these are only the only the tip of the iceberg. There are this whole journey of 30 years, and it really supported with the first webinar happened on Ahmedabad. That really shows the structure of the place, of this whole process, and this is a kind of a connection which I shared very quickly, and I hope that we can even discuss it later. Thank you, Anandji.
Yeah, thank you. It's quite a recap that is gone through. It's quite a lot of hard work, the processes, the people's movement, and the administration put together. So now I think quickly we should move to the next presenter. May I invite Shikha to continue. Before Shikha, you start, let me briefly introduce you. Shikha is well-known, personality in heritage in India, and she has a vast experience in heritage conservation management and also the planning altogether. She heads or an organization called Drona as a director. She's been involved in like an international experts for the World Heritage of Singapore, Malaysia, UAE, Myanmar, and she has been consultant to many UNESCO office and also UNESCO office New Delhi. As a director, she has been helping the other institutions, state governments, and also intact chapters in Haryana to build upon the knowledge of heritage conservation preservation. She is also a prolific writer. She has published, contributed in many journals, international, national journals. She has published book. It's very difficult to name some of them, but yes, the forts of Maharashtra, the Aryan publications, and the living heritage of Mebad. These are some of the pioneering work that she has done. She also visits SPA New Delhi and teaches urban conservation in the Department of Planning. This is the short bio of Shikha, but her contribution is really extraordinary in the field of heritage conservation. So over to you, Shikha.
Thank you, Anil, for such an elaborate introduction. I hope my screen is visible.
Yes.
Okay, so a very good evening, everyone, and thanks, Kirtiji, for inviting me today. I'll begin with what I was asked to do, basically looking at what is a World Heritage City and what are its commitments. And since we are looking at how far Ahmedabad has reached, I thought it's maybe time that we sort of review the status of Ahmedabad as per what World Heritage commitments it was supposed to give and how far it has reached. And in a similar manner, Jaipur also has its own journey. I mean, I don't like comparing cities because I think each city is unique in its own way, and they have their own processes and issues and challenges, and the beauty of each city is unique. And I mean, that's what outstanding universal value of UNESCO is all about, because they celebrate this uniqueness in each World Heritage Site. But I think Ahmedabad and Jaipur have shared, because now being the two cities, there has been knowledge sharing, and it does help. So that's the reason, when you said that we look at what Jaipur has done, I just thought we'll add a bit. But since the focus is Ahmedabad, and I'm going to keep it very brief on, what Ahmedabad was supposed to do and how far we are and how far we need to go. So I will just sort of look at it like a, report card for these cities, and which can open our discussion on, how we can further move on. So this is just an introductory slide, as what Anil was saying, that, the journey of World Heritage Cities in India. So we had Ahmedabad on the tentative list in 2011. Delhi, and of course, was also placed on the tentative list, but was dropped. The dossier was dropped. Art Deco Ensemble of Mumbai, not really a city, but a historic core that was taken up. Ekam Kshetra in Odisha, which came on tentative list in 2014, and then Jaipur City in 2015. As we were discussing, Chandigarh was, as a city, was on the tentative list, but when we moved into its nomination as a transnational with France and 7 countries, including India, it was decided that those were basically because Corbusier had only done singular projects or individual buildings in other countries. So it was basically a building centric nomination. It was only in Chandigarh that you had the city. So that's why the Chandigarh city on the tentative list got drawn. But I think we still can place it back on the tentative list. Whether it goes into inscription or not as a city is a later decision to be made. But definitely, I think it can still be placed again on the tentative list based on what UT Chandigarh feels. Ahmedabad, of course, in 2017 got inscribed, and then Mumbai Art Deco Urban Ensemble came in 2018, and then Jaipur in 2019. And then we also have, so this was, achievement of Ahmedabad, and then followed by Jaipur, really set a trend. And we had so many historic cities, who were actually approaching or wanted to be on the World Heritage List. So, Orcha Historic Ensemble was placed, Varanasi was placed, but there are so many others who are still preparing to be on the tentative list, like Pulikat, the Pondicherry is one city that really wants to do that. I know there was an inquiry by Agra. Whether it qualifies or not is another question. There was a similar query from Gwalior whether they can be on the heritage list. Even, looking at Jaipur, there were other Rajasthan cities, cities like Savai Madhopur, which definitely will not qualify. But then everybody had got this aspiration, to be on World Heritage. And we really need to, maybe in the end, we can in the discussion look at what really is the achievement being on the World Heritage List for a city, or what, can it be an instrument, say, for conservation or development, or a control which is missing in our historic cities, as Kirtiji said, rapid urbanization and a lot of other issues that they are still facing. Can World Heritage and its operational guidelines really help in addressing some of those issues? So I'll just quickly look at what, the historic city of Ahmedabad. We've already, I think, Anil has given some, brief on why it was inscribed. Of course, a 15th century city on a particular city planning. It was the historic architecture of the city, the 15th century Sultanate period, and in important interchange of human values over its span of time, which reflect in its architecture. And then this was criteria 2, for which it was approved. And then the second was criteria 5, where it is a settlement with hierarchy of living environment, with streets and community spaces, a representative of the local wisdom and sense of strong community bondage, something we saw in Debashish's presentation so well. So this aspect also is a very important criteria that was recognized for its inscription. So we now look at what was the decision, on which it was inscribed. So definitely these two were the criteria celebrated during its inscription. But the final decision in 2017 also mentioned these points clearly. And Ahmedabad had to submit these points by December 1, 2019. And if we look at, briefly what these commitments were, one was documentation of the historic buildings. So whatever the property area was, the documentation of historic buildings was required. Secondly, a detailed assessment of the extent and impact of any new construction and development projects, especially on the western section of the property and its buffer zone. Also, an effective implementation of the heritage management plan, development control regulations to be ensured, local area heritage plan, which was part of the heritage conservation plan, and specifically focusing on the conservation of wooden historic houses. Then the committee also identified that a visitor management plan is missing, and that is essential. and also that the Heritage Department of Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation requires more capacity building and technical capacity, looking at the challenge of managing this entire city. So this was something that, Ahmedabad was committed to deliver by 2019. I mean, obviously, the World Heritage Committee doesn't expect that everything can be done immediately or in 2 years. Cities are very dynamic, but they do look at seeing the progress under each section every 2 years when the reporting is done. So Ahmedabad did its first, they did one state of conservation, and the second one that they recently did was in 2023, where the factors affecting the property were highlighted as commercial development, housing, human resources, low impact research or monitoring activities, and management systems or management plan. So if we look at it in detail, again, what the World Heritage Committee highlights is that there is lack of comprehensive and accurate documentation of the historic buildings of the property. There is potential impact of new constructions and development projects on the western section of the property and its buffer zone. Also, there is lack of effective implementation on the heritage management plan, the local area heritage plan, and the visitor management plan. And there is a need to enrich the heritage department at Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation with relevant capacity building and technical capacity. Though Ahmedabad had taken the initiative of forming a trust post its inscription, which was, actually quite an achievement, and we thought it's a very positive model that can be taken up. Even when Jaipur got inscribed, one was looking at it. But these points were again highlighted in the latest report that actually required submission under these points by December 1, 2024. So again, the World Heritage Committee asked to submit the Heritage Conservation Plan, the final one, because only a draft was submitted and some points were, like ICOMOS had highlighted certain points to be changed. Also, the development of an implementation plan. So it's not just making the heritage conservation plan, but how does one implement it, and the associated financial resources for the HCP. And of course, Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation is one of the best, I think, in India in terms of financial resources compared to others like Jaipur, which is always in deficit. So there was also a requirement of visitor management plan, the completion of documentation of historic buildings. So you can see from 2017 till now we are in 2025, but the documentation of historic buildings and structures in the city, particularly the distinctive pole housing, is still pending. It's an ongoing process. The completion of detailed map of entire property and buffer zone. Besides that, ICOMOS also asked, for the 2022 urban design guidelines to be formalized as per their feedback. There is also a policy like for whether it's World Heritage City or any property under World Heritage, if there is any new project that is proposed within the property area, then heritage impact assessment needs to be conducted as per guidelines of UNESCO. So they had asked for HIA for new developments in the property as well as buffer zone, and also to ensure that conservation works, even the conservation works, they say, are subject to HIAs, including those established through PPP partnerships. So if there are any PPP partnerships, new projects proposed, even that Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation, or even if it's other cities like Jaipur, they are supposed to submit the heritage impact assessment report to ICOMOS, showing that there is no impact on the outstanding universal value because of that project. And they had a query about the Danapit fire station for heritage impact assessment. And these, of course, have to follow the guidance and toolkit for impact assessment in a World Heritage context. So this response, Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation has submitted on December 1, 2024, and it is under review. Like for Danapit fire station, it was quite a big, large area, and I think it also included a parking area, and there was a very large footprint, and they were asked to reduce the volume of that. So I think right now they've proposed that certain number of stories are decreased in that. So the volume as such is decreased, but the footprint stays the same. So it'll now be evaluated, and we will know in July 2025 at the World Heritage Committee how ICOMOS is responding to all these points that have been recently submitted by Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation. They were also asked to highlight what would be the new projects coming up in future. And what they have proposed is that there will be potential major restorations, alterations, and new construction, specifically precinct improvement plan of Vasant Chowk and Lal Darwaza, Raikhar Heritage Walk Route redevelopment project, junction and steel improvement at Jamalpur Chowki Junction. And amongst building conservation projects, they've mentioned Bhadra Fort Conservation and Sardar Patel Museum, which are actually heritage building conservation. And in redevelopment projects, they've mentioned the Kolpur Railway Station redevelopment project, the Gujarat State Road Transport Corporation bus stop development. These two are, of course, in buffer zone, and buffer zone is not that critical. But they have still asked, ICOMOS has asked for HIAs to be prepared for these particular projects. Other than that, Ahmedabad has been very actively involved in the World Heritage Cities program of UNESCO, which is a very positive, contribution, because there they actually showcase it as a city amongst all the World Heritage Cities that are inscribed. And it has also taken the initiative to be part of the UNESCO Urban Heritage Atlas. So it is currently on the UNESCO Urban Heritage Atlas on the UNESCO website. And just a quick comparison with Jaipur city, which was actually inscribed in 2019. And it was inscribed on criteria 2, which is because of its planning and architecture that demonstrates, again, an interchange of Hindu, Mughal, and contemporary Western ideas. It's also inscribed on criteria 4, which is a unique response to the terrain and the town planning, and being unparalleled in its scale and magnificence in terms of the monumental urban form, as we can see in terms of town planning. And lastly, on criteria 6, recognizing that it is the Chhattis Karkhana and the crafts people who actually make the city. And this was also the vision of Jai Singh in developing crafts, or developing it as a trade and commerce cities, and inviting crafts people there. So these are just how Jaipur is trying to maintain itself, but again it has similar challenges as Ahmedabad when it was inscribed in 2019. These were the conditions that were given during its inscription, and they had to submit it within a year also. And they are also currently, it's sort of ongoing. So their last report that was submitted, it is again mentioned that a multi-storied car park at Chaugan Stadium and Jaleb Chowk, they want more information on that. Fortunately, Jaipur has dropped the Jaleb Chowk project, and specifically the stadium. And like Ahmedabad is proposing for Danapeet, in the Chaugan Stadium, they've also reduced the height of the structure. They are also preparing the special area heritage plan under the Jaipur master plan, somewhat similar to the HCP in case of Ahmedabad. And ICOMOS has asked them to look at, points like development projects that are affecting the city wall and the craft street specifically. Also looking at detail-based plan and inventory of the attributes, architectural control guidelines, and control over demolitions, because even post its inscription, there have been several historic structures that continue to be demolished, and new constructions coming up within the walled city. And I'm sure, Ahmedabad has similar issues. And also to complete the draft interpretation strategy and tourism plans, including elements such as parking lots. So Jaipur has also submitted its report on December 1, 2024, like Ahmedabad, and it will be in this World Heritage Committee meeting in July that the next steps would be outlined for Jaipur. Recently, in case of Jaipur, the Deputy CM announced a complete facade restoration project and upgradation of the walled city. This was announced last year in the sanctioned budget. And again, this year, again, she's announced another 100 crore for this purpose. So this is just to compare, that both Ahmedabad as well as Jaipur are, envisaging future projects and upgradation. But of course, submitting their information to the World Heritage Committee and also providing the management, aspects or adhering to the management aspects as per the operational guidelines remains quite a challenge for the Indian cities which have got the World Heritage inscription. Thank you.
Thank you, Shikha. That was really very, very, the thought-provoking as well as very, very learning that one goes through, and it's like quite a big commitment that city and the community as a whole, commits to the UNESCO World Heritage Committee. And it's an ongoing process, as you rightly said, and in the process there are lots of improvements. So the looking for the goalpost right now would be really difficult for both the cities. But yes, the process has set the tune, and there are many improvements, both in the process as well as in principles, as well as the ground reality. So let's move on. Let's now bring the stakeholders who are directly involved in making this commitment happen on the ground. So may I request Sri Abhay Bhai to come in and share his experiences and involvements and contribution to the World Heritage Cities of Ahmedabad. He is a citizen, he is a part and parcel of the old city. Before you speak, sir, may I introduce you to the audience? Abhay Mangaldas ji is the founder and director of House of MG, an urban heritage hotel in Ahmedabad city. He's also convener Ahmedabad chapter INHAF, which takes care of the buildings and inventory of the buildings of heritage value. Besides being managing trustee of Shares Foundation, an educational institute for children in Ahmedabad, a renowned citizen of Ahmedabad. He has also a Master of Science in Mass Communication from Boston University, USA, with a major in computer graphics, and his contribution to city is well known. So I would request Abhay Bhai to share his experience and his direct involvement in making World Heritage Cities in Ahmedabad. Over to you.
Thank you, Anil Bhai. Just a small correction. I used to be the convener. I am no longer convener for INTAC. I am now just an advisor.
Okay.
Having said that, I have a very kind of a layperson's view of, and not a policymaker or a planner's view of World Heritage City. So I will just make that disclaimer before I start what I have to say. I'm a resident of the city. I was born in the city, and the places that I've restored, particularly the House of MG, was an ancestral house. So I'm actually a stakeholder. So my connection with the city is slightly different, perhaps from some of the other participants. Therefore, I would say I am like a person who wishes to be impacted by this nomination as World Heritage City. I have hopes that I would be impacted by it in a positive manner. Because I started the restoration much before the city became a World Heritage City, and I've been putting in my own funds in this process for the last 25 years. So it was only 8 years ago that Ahmedabad became a World Heritage City in 2017, whereas we started our project in 1995. Through 95 till 2017, we had already completed the restoration of all our buildings. So the fact that it became a World Heritage City, or that it might become a World Heritage City, had no bearing on the fact that we were restoring these buildings. We were restoring them regardless. And we were restoring them because there was a certain connection to the old city, especially with the ancestral home. And the entire motivation was, of course, the connection plus entrepreneurship. So we want our role, or my role was as an entrepreneur. I saw potential in the location of this ancestral building, which is very close to the riverfront. And what I want to just bring into this conversation is my point of view. Of course, the journey has been extremely rewarding and at the same time extremely frustrating. It could have happened in half the time had we got tailwinds instead of headwinds, which is something that we continue to face today. After 2017, so I would like to say that the municipal corporation, the government of Gujarat have always been very good in their intent. Their intentions are very good. I think everything they want to do is very positive. For reasons that the way our democracy functions, the actual application of it is where the challenges are, you know. And even for this, because we have 2.5 decades of experience in how the city works and what make people really go for something or spend time on something, is finally it's the money that makes the world go round. So unless the people of the World Heritage City, the stakeholders of the World Heritage City, the people who actually live in the World Heritage City, for them all this academic things don't matter. They don't really matter at all. What they are concerned with it is what will it do for me, you know? And this is not clear. What it will do for them, just now, it is almost as if it's going to restrict them rather than help them. So any policy which restricts a stakeholder from doing or having the freedom to do what they want with their asset is considered as a negative. It's not a positive at all. And unfortunately, the government has not been able to wipe this off yet, in spite of very positive intentions to do so. Specifically, the only policy which it has announced which will benefit the stakeholders is the transfer of development rights, which they've announced. But again, intent is good, but in action, it's so complicated. Instead of just simply announcing it on area of the surveyed land, which is on the books of the government, they announced it on built-up area. So they have to go and do measurement of every building to count built-up area, which makes absolutely no sense. Because the real commercial value of a building or any land actually is on the area of the land and allowable FSI on the land. This may be technical for all our listeners, but this is a fairly technical a webinar, so I assume they understand what is FSI and what is transfer of development rights, etc. Now, okay, so all these are challenges. What can we do? We have two extremely workable solutions that we have proposed, besides many MOUs that I signed as an intact head, with 3 MOUs I signed with the various municipal municipal commissioners, which never saw light of day for whatever reason. But we have now proposed to the urban development and the municipal commissioner, the ex-municipal commissioner, now already ex because he was there only for 2 years, 2 very positive proposals. Specifically, I am now for the first time in 7 years seeing a light at the end of the tunnel, and that light is the perspective of getting the Olympics in 2036. So whatever I'm saying is, with this light at the end of the tunnel, which we have been going through for 25 years, which is the perspective of an Olympic event in Ahmedabad in 2036. What can we do to prepare for it? Are the people from all around the world the focus of the television channels and millions of people who will be watching the games? Will it be on the bullet train? Will it be on the riverfront? Will it be on how modern the city is becoming? No, it will be on the heritage and culture of the city and how well the heritage and culture of the city is being demonstrated or put out. This cannot be with putting up some stage and doing some cultural program as we tend to do. It has to be actually by showing the life in the old city and the development of the old city. So what we have proposed is that why don't we make the World Heritage City, which is contained in the core area of Ahmedabad, a tourism special economic zone for tourism. You know, this special economic zone is a tool used by the government to develop underdeveloped areas. I would call the old city an underdeveloped area. So if we were to announce it and make it a special economic zone, and with several very interesting benefits that we put into this paper, and which has been discussed amongst, I would say, old families and of Ahmedabad who have stakes in the old city. And we've created this paper, which we actually presented to the Urban Development Secretary, as well as the ex-municipal commissioner, which says that in announcing various benefits to tourism-related occupations, whether it be craft, whether it be art galleries, homestays, restaurants, cafes, etc. These should be given special tax SOPs, which would attract them to start these. There are already quite a few, but more could come in. And number two, we have a specified listed number of heritage structures, which they need to be saved, but there is no incentive to save them. So why not give them a really high TDR? We said, give them 5 TDR, don't give them half TDR. Give them 5 times the TDR, but connect it to performance. So we have suggested that, okay, you give 5 TDR to the heritage owner, so which makes the property really valuable for who? The specified businesses for tourism. So why would they want to come here? Because they get all the SOPs. That's why most special economic zones, that's how they work. And number two, they have a major incentive in restoring the property. Why? Because they would get the TDR released only on showing a chartered accountant certificate. Maybe not 100% spent on restoration, maybe 70% and 30% is extra as a bonus to keep this. This would give them adequate incentive. And one thing which nobody seems to be realizing in the government is that most of the stakeholders are living in homes which are 6th generation, 7th generation. Can you imagine the number of owners of such a building? No policy has addressed this issue, that if you have 6th or 7th generation members living or owning a house, how is that house ever going to be restored and by who? So this issue can be resolved with the proposal that we have. Why? Because as soon as the house, which has no value just now, becomes a very valuable asset, then there will be incentive for the stakeholders, however many there may be, that okay, now they're going to get money for it, serious money for it. So they would come together and resolve their issues and everybody would be paid out. And that has a much better chance of resolving this socio-economic problem, which unfortunately no policy addresses. The World Heritage City guidelines, they don't have any they don't address practical issues on the ground, how you will do what you propose to do, So this is our proposal to make it a special economic zone. In the same breath, I would like to talk briefly about the second proposal, which is that Ahmedabad as a whole has many fantastic heritage structures even outside this core zone, and including major and amazing institutions, educational institutions and other kind of research institutions. And all these places are slowly getting encroached on and they are under threat. They don't have funds. Low-rise buildings are being destroyed. The community, that neighborhoods are going. How to save these neighborhoods? You're not only trying to save the old city, you're trying to save the whole city. And you're trying to save neighborhood and create a low-rise city, not only given to high-rise buildings. How do you do that? So again, we are proposing that come up with a green policy, which is towards giving TDR, again the same tool, to buildings which have, or properties which are there, which have not utilized their FSI. Why are you not allowing them to sell their FSI, unutilized FSI? This will allow them to create funds which they are never going to sell their property anyways, those who don't want to, and those who want to, some of the members of the family want to, then they can encash and they can give them the money for the unutilized FSI, and those who want to retain the buildings, they can keep the buildings. So both these policies are fair in fair detail, looking at every angle, looking at how to market the TDR and etc. And we really hope that the committee which is sitting to plan for the Olympics, not only for the World Heritage City Trust, but the Olympics, takes it under its purview, prioritizes green Ahmedabad, low-rise Ahmedabad communities and heritage, as well as the World Heritage City, by giving these incentives. If they start now, and of course, government, AMC will have to play its own role in public amenities and roads and garbage disposal, whatnot. But private individuals will be, usually they'll get a supercharge by this kind of a policy which puts money in their pocket. It puts money in their pocket. There is no better incentive than getting money in your pocket if you want to save anything or do anything. And I think this is where the government needs to focus. This is where, and all the policy and everything else is fine. Let the experts take care of it. But how will you get the stakeholders on your side? This is the most important. And we need to look at that. I'm sure Rajiv will add to it, because just now to do anything in the old city, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. And getting people together, because there are so many owners of all the old buildings, is impossible. So at the end of it, after 7 years, with much persuasion, again, I had to convince 400 members of my family to get this house. But how? I paid them. They immediately agreed because it was a hot potato. So all the old buildings in the old city are hot potatoes for their owners. As soon as somebody gets ready to pay them, and that person will be somebody who wants to do a business there, who wants to encash on the TDR, whoever it may be. As soon as that person has a potential to get a return on his investment, which he can, if it's a special economic zone with TDR, then things will start happening. Otherwise, whether it's in Jaipur or Varanasi or Mumbai or Ahmedabad, the same problem will happen. You have to look at the socio-economic aspect in a place like India or anywhere else and supercharge it through this fantastic tool called TDR and overcome issues with that. So that is my real call on this. And I think that's the only way to go. And we have a 12-year window before the Olympics, 11-year window. It is enough time for Ahmedabad, old city, to transform if this policy is implemented, and enough time for the government to, what shall I say, iron the wrinkles that they may come across. And they will have the citizens on their side. Just now, they put these emblems on the marked buildings and nobody wants that emblem on their building because it will mean that they can't do anything to it, you know. So there is all kinds of things happening, corruption, and the people are letting their building fall down, etc. All this needs to be cleared first before we start talking about policy and what can be done and what cannot be done and what is World Heritage City. Nobody cares. They need money in their pocket. This is the stakeholders' view. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Abhay bhai. Yeah, you're rightly saying that the stakeholders are going to be the key player, and putting them together, incentivizing them, the things will happen. This is the key, and the stakeholders' participation, community participation, one of the conditions that World Heritage Committee puts in, and without them, it's no way to go. And point well taken, Abhay bhai. And then because I have to run it fast, so I request Rajiv to come in, please, and give your experience and thought and way forward. I like the way Abhay bhai also linked it to the mega events that is going to come in 2036 as an Olympic, and how these could be dovetailed, and synergy can be brought into two processes where the people's benefit would be highlighted. That's a good point. Rajiv, can I request you to come in? Before that, let me briefly introduce you. Rajiv is a member of Gujarat Institute of Housing and Estate Development, Real Estate Development, had adopted French Haveli in the old city and donated it for a Heritage Conservation Institute for the city. The French Haveli is an 150-year-old artistically restored Gujarati heritage home offering B&B services to travelers. He's involved in heritage preservation under the banner of Ahmedabad Heritage Foundations in association with AMC. He has studied Bachelor of Engineering from MS University, Vadodara. Over to you, Rajiv. Yes, Rajiv. You're on mute, Rajiv. Can you please unmute?
Right.
Yes.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah. So I have a engineering background, civil engineer, and am in development business, real estate development. And I had no idea about heritage till 2007. I met Debashish. So I have a journey, and the journey is times of intense work, then getting frustrated, as Abhay said, and then relaxing, going in hibernation. So as Abhay said about connecting people, if you see on the screen, we have created a society also currently, so that we could have the house owners share the platform. And in 2007, our architect Kamal Mangaldas happened to just talk about Heritage Walk, and it was just a chance that we took the Heritage Walk and we met Debashish. And after 6 months of discussion, we just ended up buying this property, Divanjini Haveli, a fabulous property. But we had no idea, but just as a developer sense that to buy a property was a very easy thing. So we just ended up buying this property. And then it was just lying with us for 2 years. And then another interesting event happened in 2009. Debashish took us to Spain to see a cultural center, because he kept on telling us that we should do a cultural center in this Haveli. But then seeing is always believing. So we saw this cultural center about India, Casa de la India. And then we came back and then decided to start restoring this property. Of course, there were all challenges because we had no idea of this restoration, what is adaptive reuse plan. And we did not know what is the cost of restoration. And Abhay once asked me, what is your business plan? And I had no idea what he's talking about. But anyway, we had the money. And we started getting interested to do something different. Also in 2012, Debashish took us to this restoration exhibition in Ferrara, and we adopted the techniques of how to unload so all that document is created. We did some very nice work, and we ended up restoring this property at a very good level, and we are very happy to do this. So this is how Divanji Haveli looks when it got completed, the first phase in 2013. Then we started becoming interested about the old city revitalization, and then we signed an MOU with the municipal corporation because we started a foundation called City Heritage Center. We have a website, you can check the website, City Heritage Center. And then we started restoring other houses. Our main achievement is that we got investors because we had people, we could influence people with money. So this is one gentleman from Africa who was our client. He had bought apartments with us. And he was a lover of art. So this Haveli was going to fall down. So we convinced him to invest 1 crore rupees in the old city. And it also helped our foundation because we wanted to give employment to the artisans. So this property is now restored, and now we also set it up as a BNB. And then we also had the opportunity to pioneer the heritage TDR. So the first 5 files because of our MOU, along with the commissioner and the mayor, we proposed the files and we made the drawings in our foundation. And on 18th April 2016, we did the TDR distribution ceremony. But again, it was the pilot project. And then actually, after this, 2017, we got the World Heritage Tag. Also, for the people who don't understand about TDR is the transferable development right, which can be fixed on a high-rise building so that they can construct extra floors, and it can create a good value for the house owner because the land in the premium areas is very expensive. So because the expensive land, which is to the mark of 2 lakh rupees, 3 lakh rupees a square yard, they can really give a good price for the TDR. So the TDR is actually a very good reward. And we have almost 700 to 800 crores of TDR in the old city, which could be brought into the old city. Now, the challenge is that why is the government not making it a very high speed thing? So I would like to raise one point. There is a thing called purchase FSI. So on the basic FSI, the government is already selling purchase FSI to all the developers. All the developers are paying post-dated checks to the government when they get the real estate plan sanctioned. So they could also do the same thing for the TDRs. This is the first TDR drawing we did. After we completed Divanjini Haveli, the vision of cultural center which Debashish kept on telling us was implemented, and we had all kind of programs. We had piano recitals, we had dinners, we had film shootings, we had salsa socials, and so many things. So it was really a great experience to see the dream come true. Then going on further, we got an opportunity. Abhay's friend, she owned this property and she contacted me through Abhay that she wanted to sell this property, Anupam Mehta from Mumbai, and then we just decided to buy it. And then also it was it's there in a court, which is the Chowk, Khijra Sheri. So we thought that now we have restored a Haveli, why don't we make a model area where the Chowk is there and we could create. So then in that vision, we also had this building in the neighborhood, which we again got another investor. So eventually we could get 3-4 investors to buy properties in the old city, and we asked them to invest. I mean, we helped them to own the property, and but still, you know, that attraction, as Abhay said, if it, to make it like very attractive, still has to happen. But today, all these properties are there. We want more people, but we believe that if the incentives are made nice, and if the plan passing process becomes simple, Ahmedabad easily could have 200-300 people, because their people have so much money, they're buying farmhouses and plotted lands away. I mean, to invest 2 crore rupees in the old city is not a big deal for so many people in the old city of Ahmedabad. And then coming finally, that this is the map of the old city, and this small red spot is the Dhalni Pole. In Dhalni Pole, we have measured around 8,000 square feet of TDR. So the TDR in Dhalni Pole is around 30-40 crore rupees. So if this entire government could do that, the entire poles could go for mass sanction. And if all the houses, you know, like a single plan, then it could become a great redevelopment project where the private houses could be restored, and also the street. And also the street has been done as a model by Seva. So we believe that the scaling up is a very important thing, and the political will is the most important thing. If there is the policy made easy, then I'm sure a lot of startups, we also thought about startup and raising money and valuation. I'll show you some value. So we have thought a vertical, like a bottom of pyramid. So in Dhalni Pole, there are 200 listed heritage properties, but there are 1,000 other houses which are not listed. But those houses, they require a good structure, good sanitation, and good toilet. So to increase the quality of life, we need to, you know, work at the bottom of the pyramid. And then also the other thing is that there is a great demand of housing, because we are a populated, and there is so much illegal construction happening in the old city because the houses are cheap. 20 lakh rupees, 30 lakh rupees. And those all developers are only doing illegal construction because that's the only viable way. So we could think of legalizing that. There is some thought which I have put. And of course, on top of the pyramid comes the boutique houses and the TDR. So this is the approach of like working, serving the bottom of pyramid and going up. And these are all the other ideas of affordable housing. So in the old city, houses already have 3.54 because there are no margins. So the construction is like 3.54 times. But the new laws are only allowing 2 floors. So the third, fourth floor is illegal. So I've thought that if we could create a policy where we could tell the non-listed houses to create a facade, because as such we need precincts, and we give them third floor which they don't construct because Abhay said of floor, but that could become a like an invisible TDR. If they restore a house and make into a housing project with a facade of the precinct, then the third floor could become a free TDR, which will make the business viable and also legal. So that could be a thought, because we have the biggest business in the old city could be housing. And there are so many models around the world. Amsterdam has done it. They have created a fund and everything. So we have thought on the similar way that we could create a rotating fund, and the way we got. So there are so many properties which come to us that they want to sell. Then we could have a fund to buy the properties, restore them, and then keep it ready for new investors to come in. And we are working on a business plan of raising money and starting a venture company. I mean, it's a dream, and we are just waiting for the right policies to come in so we could start. We have already started the work. So, and as we speak, this is the last project we just completed. A house owner had come to sell us this property for 30 lakh rupees. And we convinced them that they should not sell, because in 30 lakhs, they'll not find anything in the new town. And because they had TDR, we helped them. And this is through our heritage society. And they restored this house. So people doing this is a great example for the locals. So thank you very much. So that my presentation to an end.
Thank you, Rajiv. Here is the real demonstration by one of the stakeholders who was keenly interested. And look at the mobilization, look at the people's participation from all point of view, from TDR to self-generated funds and all sorts of initiative to restore this outstanding universal value of architecture and heritage city. Thank you, Rajiv, for your contribution and also your dedicated involvement in making this World Heritage City to move further. May I request Riyaz, I think since we don't have the other participants in the list, those who are expected to be here, but then between Riyaz and Jigna, what should be the sequence? Jigna, you want to go ahead or Riyaz? Just
Maybe Jigna should go first.
yeah, Jigna. Okay. So yeah, Jigna is a colleague here at CEPT University, and your written bio, let me read. We know each other for a very long period of time, but Jigna's experience in working with traditional urban environment and framing how traditional architecture may be understood, is studied and transformed. I remember her direct contribution in restoring and renovating B.V. Doshi's building in CEPT University itself. She spearheaded that, which is in front of all of us. Jigna has also worked on preparing and nominating dossier that led to the inscription of Ahmedabad World Heritage Cities inscriptions in 2017. That's her direct contribution. She also advocates community-based conservation and has partnered with the several national international institute on heritage preservation initiative in different parts of India. Jigna is an expert member of the International Scientific Committee for Historic Towns and Villages, the International Council for Monuments and Site ICOMOS, and an active ICOMOS India chapter member. She is also a director of an award-winning practice JMA Design Company, which she co-founded with Mehul Bhatt in 1999. Jigna has studied architecture and has a master's degree in sustainable architecture from Cardiff University and PhD in conservation studies from CEPT University. Jigna, over to you and enlighten us and the audience about the initiative that has gone a long way. Over to you, Jigna.
Thank you, Anil. First of all, I don't have a presentation. I'm just going to share some thoughts. First of all, thank you, Kirti Bhai, for inviting me to participate in the discussion, and apologies for being somewhat less forthcoming about this participation. I know that the city deserves more of everyone's attention. One of the reasons of my reluctance is that I genuinely believe that we have caught the wrong end of the stick. And I think in the panel, there are more than one person, more than me, believing that right from the beginning, I think. And while I want to be hopeful, I believe that we may be at the point of no return, but the points that I'm going to share today are not coming from that belief. They're coming from the belief that if we have to do something, what are the course corrections that we want to do? In addition to what Anil introduced me to, I also run the Center for Heritage Conservation, which has a site school in the historic city of Ahmedabad. And through that, and through my PhD earlier on, which was on equity in heritage conservation on historic city of Ahmedabad, I have my research also directly looks at the inhabitants' end of this entire process. My views are going to be mixed as an educator, as a researcher who works with the inhabitants, and also as someone who views the World Heritage obligation as a part of my commitment to ICOMOS. So I've written 10 points. And the first point is that we must understand that World Heritage is primarily a knowledge project. The purpose of World Heritage is to ensure that the history and heritage of a place must be understood globally, as it represents universal values, and that every citizen of the world must be educated towards those values. The belief is that if we understand these diverse but universal values, we, as humanity, may not choose destruction, we may choose peace. With this in mind, the attention to documentation, archiving, research, and dissemination of the World Heritage City must have been the primary focus, or should have been the primary focus. The first thing that Ahmedabad should have done is to set up a documentation and a monitoring center. Maybe we can still do it with an accessible archive. We should have planned many capacity building workshops, come out with many publications, translations. Instead, there seems to be a reluctance to engage in the intellectual space with a little bit of disdain of what is called academic. The second point is that we need to learn to read the city as a living archaeology and not real estate. There was an argument in early 1990s about the Central Park, New York. Many real estate barons argued that it is too large a land right in the middle of the city to be left without capitalizing it. It was found that if Central Park was developed, the city will be left without a cultural space. And for the health and well-being of the citizens, it was important to leave it outside the market economy. In that context, historic city of Ahmedabad is 5.5 square kilometers, so roughly 2% of the city. I'm sure we can think of it as a place that hosts historic and cultural evidences and has people engaging with it constantly. Economies can be worked out with processes of taxations. Ahmedabad has a beautiful history of repairing historic city through taxes. I'm referring to the 1856 fort wall repairs by the town wall committee. The third point that I want to make is that visitation is for cultural exchange, not for consumption. I use the term visitation, not tourism. Visitation is transformative. We go to cultural sites and places for what is termed as cultural exchange. I think Shikha used that word. Going back to the education argument, this experience is supposed to be immersive, not necessarily curated, but with opportunities of interpretation. It is supposed to be an exchange where visitors learn from inhabitants and vice versa. Inhabitants change with visitors' gaze as well. Tourism processes or expected policies currently are looked at with a consumption model. We expect people to come here, consume the city, and go. We are then worried that there is not enough beauty in the city for consumption. There is enough research to suggest that this entire relationship with visitors has more to do with how this exchange pans out rather than how visually beautiful these places are. So of course, we need our bread and breakfast, our cafes, but we also need a mobility plan, a place to walk, a city to walk through. We need our interpretation centers. We need scientifically and authentically, not necessarily beautifully conserved structures that can teach us what the universal value is. The fourth point is inhabitants have the first right to the city. Very few historic cities function with tourists and visitors as their primary stakeholders or imagining them as their primary consumers. Historic cities are fantastic to navigate because they are great places to live in, walk through, spend time in, where inhabitants are happy, have a great quality of life, they have accessibility to the changes that are being planned. This is where I feel that we have gone most wrong. None of our processes are about making life better in historic cities. Abhay Bhai beautifully spoke about homeowners. We need owners' guides to navigate this process. The fifth point is the city is not a homogeneous entity. Part of the historic cities are more conducive to receiving visitors than others. Some parts are safer for women than others. Some have migrants, some have temporary residents. Our local area plans must develop indicators of heritage conservation and quality of life that recognizes this diversity. The sixth point is conservation in a city like this is an equity project. Considering the diversity, the economic plan, as well as the accessibility of heritage, must consider conservation as an equity project, where sense of place, historic awareness, and livelihood must be planned, considering various opportunities that are available to inhabitants as well as visitors and accessibilities. Histories of a city are more than what the outstanding universal value says. We unfortunately don't recognize that. In doing this, we may have to refrain from romanticizing traditions, and we may have to have a critical view of everything that goes on. With this in mind, Abhay bhai, I'm not entirely sure if the special economic zone is the way to go. The historic city must be part of the city. It must be a part of the larger processes of the city. If that is the only way out, and I'm keeping my mind open to that, considering the situation we are in, we must consider questions of gentrification more seriously. You mentioned Olympic cities. Olympic cities of past have told us and taught us that they leave a large vacuum in their wake. The seventh point I want to make is, which Abhay bhai has already made, and I think Rajiv bhai has also already made, we need to focus on systems and processes and not projects. We have a framework, but for some reason we don't want to utilize that framework in order to create processes that are easier for the inhabitants to transform, easier for investors to transform. And we have not been working on creating processes that are robust. The eighth point, we must recognize the capacity gap. We take a lot of pride in saying that Ahmedabad has been first in many things. The first historic city, first industrial city before that, one of the first cities to have a municipality. And in that entire culture of being best, also as having the best of universities and best of educational institutes here, we also do have the best of experts in the city. We have the best of investors in the city, as we can see. But our city does not have the capacity to conserve. And I think that is a gap that we need to very seriously investigate. Not just on what is the gap, but why is that gap and why is that engagement so selective? The ninth point that I want to make is that we need to spend at least a year in thinking about the master plan, what we have done right and what we have done wrong. And I say this because the city administration has almost always been reactive. It responds to emergencies, not to long-term planning and long-term situations. The last point I want to make is that climate change is here and it is urgent. The IPCC report says Ahmedabad is going to be unlivable by 2030. This year, we are already seeing heat waves that are much longer than they've come much earlier. They're going to be much longer than they have been till now. 10 days of continuous heat wave. We have medical data that says that it kills people. Certain communities are more vulnerable than others. Certain genders are more vulnerable than others, and there are medical data to prove it. Historic cities have people living that don't have access to resources. There are pockets that don't have access to resources. If we don't take that seriously, we may possibly going towards creating a place that is unlivable. There are lessons from heritage and there needs for conservation. And here I think the conservation perspective has to be slightly different than, or the heritage perspective needs to be slightly different than the perspective of value. Climate change creates migration. Heat waves is going to create migration. People are going to move out. People are going to be displaced. In this processes of displacement, if we do not invest in understanding the heritage from the point of view of how it makes people associate with their own lives, we are going to have communities that are alienated from their own pasts. I'll give you an example, and this is an example that a renowned scholar, Elizabeth Brabeck, gives. She looks at the communities that migrated, or they're forced to migrate because of wars. They take with them little totems that reminds them of who they are. That is the conservation perspective that we need to introduce, especially for communities whose histories we don't say, we don't tell, and they live in the historic city. The deterioration is going to be fast and rapid. We possibly have only 5 years. We may be beyond conservation in the traditional sense. We have to quickly move to climate adaptation. We may have to quickly move to mitigating the impact. We may have to quickly move to addressing the new projects that are going to enhance climate impact or heat wave impact. We may want to propose new projects that will mitigate this impact. We may also want to move towards possibility of planning for loss. I think these are the points that I wanted to say. Over to you, Riyaz.
Thank you, Jigna. Yeah, that's what the intention was, to moving beyond the inscribed prescription of a World Heritage Tag, and you rightly putting up the challenges of climate change, and how it will go beyond this World Heritage Tag. World Heritage Tag might be a process to mitigations or might not, and therefore we need to move beyond that. Abhay Bhai also telling the importance of going beyond the World Heritage Site, linking the other developmental activities to city making and heritage conservations through business-oriented opportunity that we have. And Rajiv already demonstrated some of these gentrification that is possible to attract or at least bind them together, the community together. Now I have to come to Riyaz. And Riyaz, briefly, let me introduce to you audience here. I will just, in quick introductions, Riyaz has a very innovative mind architecturally. He is a part of this practicing architect firm called Anil Design. Most importantly, I have to highlight that he has restored the bicycle of Gandhiji's and is also site for Gandhi's Gandhi Heritage Site mission. He teaches at CEPT University as an associate professor. He has interest in stepwells of Ahmedabad, conservations, water and heritage. And a lot many conservation studies and projects. His own interest is dedicated towards city and heritage conservation. So over to Riyaz for the insights going beyond the World Heritage Cities and entire urbanism that old city brings to us. Over to you, Riyaz.
Thank you, Anil Bhai. Thank you. And Kirti Bhai, thank you for coercing me to join this discussion. It's been a real pleasure to be part of it. And I hope I can bring some perspective. It's always good to be the least qualified in a panel, because then you have the right to irreverence and saying things a little more loosely than everybody else. But just before I start open my presentation, I have to say that it's quite informative to have sat through all the presentations, and it did bring to mind some of the contradictions that I experienced, because my engagement with the old city has, the informal one can say, goes back to student days when as an architect one looked at the old city with a certain romantic lens, and in more recent times, in from 2020 onwards, my role was as team lead with the National Institute of Urban Affairs. And as you all probably know, the National Institute of Urban Affairs is really a policy think tank and has no mandate to be an implementative agency. And so its role in such a project was under question. And it was Jagan Shah, the director at the time, who really put it in perspective as to why a think tank and a policy agency should be involved. And the idea was something like this, and it goes back to the larger fact that the walled city of Ahmedabad is part of and is a complex urban system. And for 200 years or so, it has been isolated in its imagination as the city has grown around it. And in that sense, even in our planning codes, you see it is termed as a gamtal. It is isolated through what we call a lal dora, a kind of line that's drawn around it. And the planning imaginary that is applied to the entire city is not applied, or there is no continuity between the larger fabric of the city as it grows and this entity that we lovingly call the old city, the walled city, the World Heritage City, etc. And therefore, the imagination is of it as a kind of isolated urban phenomenon, medieval, quite homogeneous. And that has somehow continued by the inscription, by the circle that's drawn around it as a heritage entity, as a heritage kind of what we would say asset, when you look at the 68,000 houses that roughly compose this fabric. And my mandate as someone who was leading a team that was meant to look at its urban dimensions was that if we were able to come up with a heritage conservation plan, and in that sense dovetail it with larger planning and the developmental planning ideas and logics, and the developmental plan does have its chapter on heritage. If we were able to kind of dovetail this, we would actually be able to put out principles that would apply to a much larger cohort of what we could call vernacular, indigenous, or self-built building fabrics or building environments. And the idea that NIUA had was that if we could do it for the old city of Ahmedabad, we could then tweak the principles and the learnings from this project to look at all types of vernacular or self-made settlements and develop guidelines for them through tools that NIUA could then kind of disseminate. So that was the reason why an entity like NIUA got into the project. And immediately, when looking at it, this contradiction between its definition and the need for looking at networks and flows across the city into the larger fabric, because at some point, what Jigna was also suggesting, and I think in some ways what Abhay and Rajiv are also trying to do by tinkering with policy at small scales, is to, in some sense, connect it with flows of economy, with flows of services, with flows of people that come and go through the city. Because unless it's connected, this thing is just going to kind of petrify within its boundary into something that might be very pretty but dead. And in that sense, the idea of how we make connections, whether they are very simple connections of how we locate at sewerage, or what Jigna was talking about, a mobility plan, how do we kind of look at pedestrianizations and the place of the car, all of these are kind of issues that both clarify and allow you to articulate what the quality of the environment within the city will be, but also how it's connected to what's around it everywhere. And you can't look at it in the way that we started studying in some sense, the problem was that you can't look at it in an isolated manner, which in some sense the heritage perspective was pushing us to look at. And we had to kind of extrapolate it to a planning perspective where you start looking at connections across in order to kind of solve some of the problems. I can give you one very kind of practical example. One of the biggest problems in the old city is traffic. And I can tell you that even if you were living in Ahmedabad, say in the 90s or early 2000s, it wasn't such a pain to go to the old city. Today, it's a real difficult proposition to go to, let's say, the Jami Masjid market to get fruit. I mean, nobody is going to do this, not even on Sunday. And the reason for that is traffic. And one of the reasons for that is that traffic, when you study it, is actually freight. The real problem is freight, because about 60% of the houses are actually used as warehousing, because we don't have a warehousing policy for small scale businesses that make up the old city. And if you've got freight and you've got warehousing, you need a policy that is not necessarily a heritage policy to kind of necessarily suck out some of the ways of use that the buildings are being used, in order that freight is then kind of taken out of the city, etc. So a larger developmental kind of imagination is required if we are going to solve problems within the city. I'm sorry, I've decided that I'm not going to show you the slides, because I'll just go through my points. I think everybody is reasonably familiar with the fabric of the city, so I'll just continue if you don't mind. But so you have this kind of conundrum where you want to look at the problems within this precinct, but some of the solutions may lie outside it and may require a larger kind of zoomed out perspective in order that you are able to solve these problems. And I think that kind of imaginary, which NIUA and our team of planners, urban designers, data people was trying to convince and talk to the municipality on. I guess they weren't ready for that conversation yet, because a lot of the information that was available also wasn't kind of organized in a manner where there was enough convincing evidence for us to be able to put across. But my point is that if you're going to look at this as a city, then these networks and these kind of kind of interconnections are going to be paramount. And I would have shown you on the slide, but it doesn't matter. Really, what we started looking at was through pilot projects and started kind of working out urban design proposals for, let's say, Gaikwadni Haveli or JP Chowk within the city, where you could actually start talking about some of these connections and flows that take place. And in that sense, it was, as Jigna was suggesting, it was an inhabitant centric proposal for development. We were imagining also that if we are looking at a heritage conservation plan, there's also a developmental part to it, that the two are not separate. So if I was to look at the plan of Ahmedabad, you would have, let's say, Khadia and the what you would say the southwestern parts of the city having a large number of heritage assets. But if you start looking at the southeastern part and the northwestern part of it, actually not having that many heritage. If I look at Kanpur and Mirzapur, they don't have that kind of concentration of heritage assets. So I can actually have an LAP for those areas, that is a local area plan for those areas, that suggests and enhances development rather than conservation, which would kind of take the lower parts of the city. So a more graded kind of approach to both development and conservation within the larger fabric of the city, allows you to suggest that it's not conservation versus development. And that there is a way of connecting the new development within the old precinct with that which is happening outside the city as well. And that requires a certain kind of view. And some of this was coming out of some structural conundrums that we were facing. And one interesting one is the underpinning, the logical underpinning of something like the UNESCO's suggestion, which is the HUL, the historic urban landscape approach, which talks about continuities. It talks about people-centric and landscape-centric conservation. And is in some ways at odds with our own development plans logic, which is more how would you say? It's more, it makes distinct zones and passes lands in particular ways that kind of isolate and then looks at within homogeneous kind of parcels how the development is to go. So these logics need to be dovetailed. They need to be satisfied, as as we were saying. There's a promise to be fulfilled, but it's not only the promise to the UNESCO that has to be fulfilled. It's within our own developmental paradigm that we have as our projections for 2030, 2040, whatever they may be. So I think that this two-way looking at it was what NIUA was really trying to kind of link, that it's not only something that's coming from one type of inscription, but taking into account various kind of articulations that we were, in that sense, we were required to satisfy. So, these conundrums continuously took place. And to kind of also in some way kind of resonate with what Rajiv Bhai and Abhay Bhai was saying, we were saying that, there needs to be a kind of plan by which the heritage value has some kind of mirror or some kind of resonance with actual land and real estate value. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to get people to invest or to even take care of properties within the old cities. And that is not in the sense of just what the cost of land is, but simply like again, I go back to the example 1990s, where when Jigna and I and many others were students, if you wanted to see a film or a movie in Ahmedabad, you would go to the old city. There were 7 or 8 theaters that took you there, which means social infrastructure was centered in a particular manner. You had about 10 schools which were, very active. And apart from the municipal shalas that you have, there isn't a school that an inhabitant of the old city actually aspires to send their children to. If I had to say where a kid from the old city is going to go to play cricket, they will cross the river. There is no availability. There may be a few swimming pools, municipal swimming pools on this side, but in terms of livability, there is just no infrastructure that is required. We can look at infrastructure as drainage and roads and water supply, but I do need the social dimensions in order to make it aspirational, and therefore to actually say that it is valuable this is a valuable place for you to live. So that infrastructure, the fact that right now we are in a kind of paradigm where we look at infrastructure as that which makes movement possible in the most efficient manners, actually has taken away the fact that these social dimensions of livability that need to be kind of foregrounded if these areas in the city are going to work. And the last point which I'm going to make is the participatory one. And I think that's the one which was most telling for us, because really one of the things that we found was that what's most ironic is that this is a city built by people for themselves. And as experts, we are coming in, and really the sense is we are not needed. And I'm saying this in kind of really direct tones, that we are not opening up the process by which people can build their own houses or rebuild or take care of the role between the specialist and the people. Just as we are talking about the role between the municipality and the city, okay, at the lower scale, hasn't been thought out carefully. And I think that's why we are getting a lot of resistance in the relationships between, let's say, somebody who puts the plaque up and the people, because we haven't completely understood, and Abhay mentioned this, we haven't understood how to incorporate the aspirations of people who live there into our imaginary of development. So I'm not thinking about, say, a Kirana wala along Relief Road. What is the kind of development that I need to kind of imagine for him? I certainly know what kind of TOD I need to put in so that I have a large ticket so that West Side can be instituted on, let's say, the outer ring. But I have absolutely no urban imagination to talk about how the small shopkeeper will be benefited in the long run, and what is the paradigm by which his shop is going to be impacted when that Olympic comes. Okay, I'll end on that note. Thank you.
Thank you, Riyaz. Yeah, it's really the great linking of these communities put together, and until the people takes part of it and becomes the major stakeholders, it's very difficult to bring in development for the sake of development and leaving the people behind. So there's a strong message, Riyaz, that you're trying to bring in. What comes out from Jigna is to go beyond this World Heritage, conservations versus development, and Abhay Bhai and Rajiv brings in the demonstration effects of conservations and development. We do have to go beyond and much more. But key to the inscription also, if you look at the inscription in 2 parts, one is conservation, preservations, and a whole lot of activities under that particular heads. And then you have also sustainable development principles, where you need to bring in sustainability. People's participation is key. Stakeholders' participation is the key. And therefore, unless and until it becomes people's movement, it's not going to work out. And the world across, the historical city or historical districts revitalizations that we have, learnings from Europe and other parts of the Southeast Asia, is happened because of the community's engagement. So here it comes, the new imagination of participatory yet people-centric, stakeholders-based conservation management plan, which is far more successful than any other top-down. With SEG becoming the approach or Olympic, the people has to be on the center. So I would stop here and take up some of the questions from the audience. We still have more than 30 people, including all of us together in this webinar. So may I open up for the question answer? Are the audience allowed to put on mics, or they will ask question in the Q&A? Chitrakshi, can you guide?
So they can raise their hands and then they are allowed to
They
talk.
can unmute and ask question. Yes, of course. That's a direct intervention. I would like to move ahead.
So there is a
Anyone?
question in the
Yes.
Q&A box.
Oh, so let me begin with the chat box questions. Where is that? Can you help me, Chitrakshi, to get those questions? I can see only the bios are there in the chat box.
So there's a Q&A question mark besides share.
Oh, okay, question marks. I got that. Yeah. So I have one question here, only one question. Ayushi Agarwal, I think it's for all of us. How can we effectively educate and engage people in understanding climate change? What role do policies play in addressing climate change, and how can they be designed to balance environmental responsibility with economic feasibility? Given the substantial taxes we pay and the added burden on property owners to maintain built assets, how can we create a fair and supportive system that encourages sustainable practices without excessive financial pressure on community or government? That's not very clear, but we can still manage to answer. Any one of our panelists would like to jump in?
I just would like to clarify,
Yeah, Jigna, please.
respond to the first question and then clarify the last
Climate
one.
change,
Because I
yes.
talked about taxes. I don't think we need to educate people in climate change. They're living it. It's in 2011, the report on 2011 heat waves, and subsequently every year in Ahmedabad, there are more than 100 people dying of heat waves. So I think people are aware of what's going on. People are aware that the heat is more. I don't think we should take, that is not the burden. Our burden is we are also living it. So I think we need to accept it as a shared experience. I'll talk about this question of taxes. I don't think at any point of time one meant that we need to increase taxes. I think when municipality or central government or state government, when money is distributed from existing taxes, there is a substantial amount of money that goes in the question of well-being of people. That tax money is supposed to be spent in with reference to well-being. If we are able to articulate, and there is enough articulation around the world, if we are able to, for historic city of Ahmedabad, accept that articulation, that heritage is linked to well-being, or heritage conservation is linked to well-being, being close to your sense of place, your sense of belonging, your place attachment is linked to ontological security. Ontological security is a slightly heavy word. Please Google it. It's a simple explanation. If we are able to link that to the question of mental health, these researches are done all over the world, then it may not be such a difficult thought to say that just like tax money is spent on physical health, it can be spent on the questions of mental health as well. So I think at no point in time I'm saying that we need to add taxes. I think the existing taxes should be linked to the question of mental health, that is linked to the inhabitants' quality of life, inhabitants' sense of place, and their relationship with their heritage. I think if the role of policies, I think that is a 1-hour class. So I don't know if I can take that answer just now. Anil, you are on mute, Anil. We can't hear you.
Yes. So, anyone would like to answer this economic versus environmental burden that the question policy particularly deals with? And then we move on to another question.
I don't know if I'll answer the question, but it is to do with my firm and unshakable conviction that anything can happen, nothing can happen without economic activity. And to invite economic activity to the old city or to any part of the city where you want development without economic activity, a place dies. So you have to bring in economic activity. And to use the phrase which has been going around, dovetail it with heritage management or heritage restoration, we have a plan which we proposed, which will induce economic activity. How do you induce economic activity in a place like the old city? That is something which I have tried to understand, and I've tried to understand why every single plan that so many people have proposed, policy level, this, that, all of them fail. Why? What happens? Why does AMC keep signing MOUs and they don't execute them? I think they are not convinced about this. And the second very important thing, which nobody seems to pay attention to, is the socio-economic factor. Each of these private homes is owned by 100 people, 50 people. How do you untangle that knot other than through economic activity? So untangling a knot like that, where like our Haveli, all the buildings around are falling apart and they've collapsed. And when you try and say, okay, can I buy it? Oh, he said, there are 50 people. I don't know, what. So the only key to this lock is economic activity. And the easiest access is through TDR. The same thing goes for, when I said low-rise buildings, what I meant was, why are trees not valued and why is real estate valued? It's high time that we started putting a value on trees. How do you put a value on a tree? By giving it, I mean, people have been talking about green credit and whatever, environmental credit, etc. But whenever that comes, if the government recognizes this and start giving tax incentives for old trees, which are custodian, we are custodians of old trees, So right. Just like we are custodians of heritage, we are custodians of trees.
May I come in, Abhay?
Yes, of course.
No, Abhay, I just wanted to clarify because I mean, my understanding is that there are like 30 markets plus in the old city, and some of them I'm very fond of just because of the kind of spatial character there. But from what I understand is like if I look at Dalgarwad or if I look at the gold market at Manik Chowk, I'm curious, does that qualify as economic activity, or do you have something else in mind? Is it building economic?
No, I have totally the fact that these activities could happen regardless of whether the structure is heritage or not. These markets have nothing to do with the building in which they are housed. They maybe have to do geographically and legacy-wise to the place where they are housed. But right. The building, when we are talking about built heritage, when talking about World Heritage City, it is cultural as well as built, right? So the whole culture of the city and the fabric of the city is intertwined with the built heritage, which is now slowly losing. So all the things which connected the profession of the people, that each pole had a profession, a certain concentrated profession. This is no longer there because original owners are going away. So yeah. I think whether that is reversible or not, I don't know.
Okay.
To bring back the old owners, but certainly to preserve the old buildings. I think I can see no other way than to give it these benefits.
Economic incentives.
I was just curious about the fact that, I mean, my understanding is that there's a lot of economic activity in the old city. In fact, largely right now, it's not functioning as a residential, let's say, enclave of 68,000 houses. It's really business, because a lot of that housing is also used for warehousing. So in some sense, it's all commercial right now. That's my...
But the condition of the old city is what it is because it is only commercial. There is no incentive to retain that house and they want to make it into a glass building, because the commercial activity will continue in the glass building. That commercial activity has nothing to do with the fact that it's a beautiful 300-year-old carved Haveli. What connection does it have?
No.
Right. So let's move on to next question, which is come in the chat. How can we make administration acknowledge equity and quality of life? So what is the way? Anyone, please? How do you convince administrations to acknowledge equity and quality of life? Partly, Riyaz has already put up questions of social infrastructure and sewer line and all. It's a part of the quality of life indicators. But what about equity? Who will get how much HTDR and where? And that's a big question. So how do you identify? 68,000 or 3,000 has already been identified, put on the official list by the heritage cell. How do you manage this equity?
I love the silence around this question.
Okay. That's a smart way of doing things.
No, but I think, that comes to my mind that before, isn't this the primary job of a municipality or an administration? Even before it has a job as a custodian of heritage. I think the primary job is to ensure quality of life and ensure equity. I think
that's a primary function of
it's a primary function of a municipality. And I think that's the silence.
Yes. Yeah, one more question has come here. No, I don't have. Yes, one is last question of the session, I would like to call it. Priyansi Pathak. The conservation process is already focused on the important buildings, but the old city fabric is also made by of several modest buildings which are not graded by AMC. These houses are largely abandoned by the owners who have shifted to the new city. How can these little houses be preserved in order to maintain the urban fabric and not let them to be torn apart and converted into grotesque apartments by the builders? Very provocative questions. Yes, Shikha, please go ahead.
Yeah, so because I just wanted to share what Jaipur is doing, and when I was looking at Ahmedabad, that's why I was surprised that it's only the heritage buildings that are being listed. Because in Jaipur we are taking each chokri, and in fact we had a dialogue with UNESCO. New Delhi, we also had Minja and Paul coming from France to help us look at it. And we realized that it's not the heritage structures, it's actually the non-heritage structures that need to be addressed equally. So in Jaipur, we are looking at the chokri and we are mapping each and every structure. It's not just the heritage building. And whatever norms are, because we have to look at it holistically as a city. And in fact, our plan also, we don't, Ahmedabad has a separate heritage conservation plan and a local area development. We have not done that. As Riyaz has said, it is more of a urban outlook. So ours is a special area heritage plan. Conservation is just one sub plan under that, but we have comprehensive mobility, we have tourism interpretation, we have infrastructure like sewage and everything under that. So, that's the approach we should take. It's not just the heritage structures. It's, holistically, we have to look at all the buildings, open spaces, greens, as Abhay has said. Even we have an environment and landscape plan, which is looking at the blues and the greens within the city that need to be addressed.
No, I think, of course, my presentation didn't have time to explain, but an entire kind of volumetric code for all buildings, apart from those which are assets, was something that we were speculating with, we were working with, in order to say what is the nature of urban form that we aspire for. So even if you break a building right now, when you build it back, it should actually make a better city. So even if I've got a building that I'm going to allow to change, I'm not interested in it being back in the way it is. I'm actually saying that what is the future urban form of Ahmedabad going to be like? So I think in that sense, to just respond to Priyanshi's point, that sometimes you have to accept that to enhance the quality of the old city, certain buildings may need to be broken. We need to get a better quality of urban character. So it's not about ordinary buildings versus special buildings. It's about the overall urban fabric and what we want to build it towards. And in that sense, the overall volumetric exercises that you do in order to say on each street, what Shikha is suggesting that they're doing there in Jaipur, in mapping every building and saying, therefore, what should be the urban edge, what should be the urban form, what should be the porosity of movements, etc., etc. All that are thought out in that plan. But at the moment, it's difficult to have that conversation.
Riyaz, just curious, does that happen for the old city at all? Anywhere, forget the old city, the new city.
Yes, for the new city, certainly there
it's
are
only area plans. They are not building-wise plans or nothing like that. No,
the
I've never seen.
GDCR
Otherwise, the city wouldn't be what it is just now.
No, that's not completely true. The GDCR does have reasonable regulations on how we build. I mean, we can disagree with it, but I'm saying that
No, I was curious that does it really have how to improve the city? I would like to see that.
No, it does have because
the last plan that was passed was 2000 in our area was to expand our road on which I live on. And we have gone to the Supreme Court to fight against it because it is based on some study of traffic in 1998, whereby the road is to extend by 20 feet. Now, if there was such a plan like the one you're talking about, how to make a better city, obviously a low-rise green city is better than a high-rise, coming on Mangaldas Road or whatever. Anyway, I was just curious to know.
The thing is that, like, for example, if you go straight down your road and you hit Ashram Road, that is all part of the CBD. So if you're developing that as a CBD, nobody wants low rise. So I'm just saying that aspiration in the first place.
That's Bimal's idea. Everything should be high rise.
Yes, I will come in now, Riyaz.
No. What I'm trying to say is that whether we agree on where the city is heading, there is a plan. That's what I'm saying, and there is some volumetric understanding, which is also why Abhay, they want a wider road so that they can justify higher buildings, etc., etc. So it's all.
No, that's true. But the practical functionality is also whether the road is required only for traffic movement or it's required for ambulance and fire brigade to come in, emergency services. And those are the issues that need to be brought in. The point here, well taken, that the converse is whether the conservation, preservation of heritage value and the development that comes in can be separated or put together. That's the biggest debate. If you separate them together, I think the world across is showing that it's very difficult to separate them together. If conservation, preservation happens, it happens with the development. And therefore, that's a message coming up from all the speakers and the people at the center. That's how I can summarize here for the sake of timing. We have short more than 15 minutes. We started, 6 to 10, and then now we are 6 to 8 to 36. So I would like to end it here if Kirtibhai permits it, and then vote of thanks from none other than Kirtibhai would be the best way to end this particular webinar. I personally enjoyed this particular conversation with my limited knowledge of heritage and world city. But it's been great learning for me as well. Over to Kirtibhai.
Thank you. I think my camera is tired and I think it's not functioning. Therefore, you won't be able to see me.
We can hear you.
Just few things. One is it has been very, very rich discussion. As a matter of fact, I'm just trying to kind of put it together in terms of how many ideas have emerged, and my calculation could be wrong, but I thought it was something like 65, which I just put them together, and it could be, I think, 120, but it was so rich in every respect, and I think, and therefore, thank you very much that so many of you came, and so many of you stayed back till the last minute, and I thought Abhay would run away after making a presentation, but he's still around. And I thought Jigna Benji, I think, is in Mumbai.
With the
and
august
must be
company
very
that you
busy.
provided, of
There's
course.
no way that she would hold back, but everyone has held back. So that's thank you very much. I just want to take one more minute, as someone who organized this. Ahmedabad is a happening place. And a large number of things are happening. And just as a matter of newspapers in the last week or so, there was a news item day before that is talking about investing 1,000 crore rupees on the extension of the riverfront. There's another story yesterday or day before, I think, in an Express or Times of India was talking about bringing in something like 44,000 crore for the Olympic city. What surprises me, and of course your BRTS and all that which is happening. Question that comes up is this: that why such a prestigious thing like Ahmedabad being a heritage city is not really getting that kind of motion? What is it? Is there a political will missing? And I think it's a cliche. But in the context of what is happening, we got to ask this particular question, especially as a matter of fact, before I coming here for this meeting, someone sent me a budget for the heritage conservation of the municipal corporation. And if I'm not taken, it was not too late, I would have given those statistics, but it was very interesting. It was a 4-page, there are several diagrams, and but basically saying that Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation's budget was about 12,000 to 14,000 crore this year. Only 0.5% of it is essentially meant for conservation and heritage, just 0.5%. And then I think, they also gave me numbers, there's something like 76 crore, and even that was not spent last year, so 66 crore, and I think, I didn't have the time to go through. But basically saying that it's very low priority in every conceivable way. And I think that is something one has to look into why it's so low priority. And as a matter of fact, I also, as of the entire these two meetings, webinars happened just because I came across in a Gujarati newspaper a news item, which was completely irrelevant. But what it said was this: is a 2-3 column news item, which said that in the year 2024, only 976 foreigners visited Heritage City. And then he sent me another additional kind of information that if you add to local people, there were just 9,700 local people. So question was this: that if it's a heritage city, there's so much is happening, it's a global kind of phenomenon, it's the first city in the country, why is not anything happening? So that was the whole question. Now, as a part of I promised, and when I wrote this letter for inviting everyone, about this 20 people for this webinar, I also wrote that I would want this to be little more than a talk shop. And I said we would try and do something around this. Now, when looking at this, everything that has emerged in the meeting today and the meeting we had on 25th, there are so many ideas that you can't really put together into what I thought that will produce a white paper. Now, it's too much to kind of think about putting a white paper, but I'm personally very keen that this two investment that has happened by people who think about this so much, people who are concerned about, there's so many ideas, I think, as a matter of fact, Abhay told me that, he will only talk about ideas, and I'm very glad that he did that. So I'm saying there is so much on the plate, and there's so much to be done. And of course, the whole aspect of quality of living. 400,000 people in those polls and those settlements. So what I want to ask as a kind of parting sort of question is this: that is there anything that could be done? And the reason I'm asking this question is, and I think Abhay said time and again that it's very frustrating, and everyone knows it's very frustrating. But something has got to happen. And if this 20 people who got together, I think one of the best brains on the subject, can we take it somewhere from here? And in what form? I thought, like, say, no one will ever notice. The chief minister will not notice, the minister in charge will not notice, and even municipal commissioner will not notice that such two events happened. But two events have happened. So many people have spoken, and there's so many brilliant ideas have come up. It will not even be noticed if we don't do anything. So my little question is, can we do something like, say, for instance, if you're interested, I would, in the next 2 weeks' time, convert this, we have full recording into a transcript and make it available. Can we pull out 20 ideas, 30 ideas that the Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation, the chief minister should look at it? Can out of 20 people who are here, can 10 people go and meet chief minister that, like, these two meetings happened, so many ideas are there. Are you willing to do, are you willing to examine this? It's a small little gesture. I know the lethargy or whatever you call it, it will not change anything. But then you've taken a step. We are very concerned, we have ideas, and we have put them together. So my question is, and I would, if necessary, write a small little later tomorrow or day after tomorrow to all of you, can something be done? Can we take it one step ahead from where it is at this point of time? Because fact remains that nothing honestly is happening. Nothing is happening. We're very happy that we got the tag. That's it. That's it. And so that's my small question. And I thought I would leave it at that. And it's already 2.5 hours. Everyone is here. I don't want to kind of text you anymore, but probably we'll write a small letter and seek your suggestion, and certainly put together a written form, this dialogue that has happened. So many people have spoken so many things. I will do that. So thank you very, very much. And I couldn't be more grateful for such brilliant exposition and sharing and a feeling behind that. It's not that people have spoken. Everyone who's spoken with heart in it. They're very concerned. They see opportunity. They see problem. They see inaction, and there's tremendous wisdom around this. So thank you very much once again. And I think let me reach out to you again with a small little letter saying that is there something that we could do? Because if there was a time, I would want to kind of extend this for 15 more minutes and ask in terms of what could be done in order to take this to the next step. But we don't really have the time now because everyone is tired and is getting into 8:40, 8:50 almost, and I don't think there's energy or desire to stretch it any further. But I would take this opportunity and try and stretch it a little more in that particular form. So thank you very much, and very grateful to you.
So Jayendra sir has come.
Oh,
no. Yes, sir. Hello.
Jayendra bhai?
Yes, sir. I was here off and on. It's a long thing, so I had some social duties. So I just went ahead, off and then came back. At the last hour, I thought, I am really enjoyed these things because I have many a times all the experts I have seen, heard them, means known them by their dignity and their stature and all those things, but it is the first time that I'm in touch with them. I'll just brief with what 3 sentences. We, the people and traders of those old city. I represent the Federation of Traders, and our 70 to 80 associations are situated around these things. Whereas Mr. Riyaz told that now it is being used by the as a storage and godowns also. That is very correct. So, and what Abhay Bhai told, that there has to be some financial or means economy attached to these things. So, what we can do for the time being, whatever happens, we can adopt one few of the monuments on our own and entrust that maintenance and vegetation and cleanliness, that responsibility to that surrounding area associations. That we can do. So if somebody can leave it out, and we can have 1 or 2 physical seminar in those area, and one of you ex-stalwarts would come, then they would listen to you, and we can measure on it. That is the thing which we can do at the ground level. We cannot do enforce government for the policy level, and that is the work of you people whom government will value and tell them. For us, they don't treat us well also, but it is our duty to do something for the city, and this is mainly for the heritage. So this is the last 1 or 2 sentences I just wanted to tell you. That is good enough, and thank you very much, Kirit bhai. Kirti bhai, sorry for bringing me into these things and making me realize what can be done and what is. We know what was the obstacle, because I have tried many a times to pursue AMC people to do something and to try many things, but it has failed. No commissioner has already, the heritage city and structure is only for their benefits and their meetings and all those things, but nothing comes out there. They are not interested. It is just a showcase to impress Narendra Modi that we are doing all those things and something like that to keep in the eye of the. It is not beyond that thing. That is, my words might be harsher to you, but we have been, being treated by these people like that only, and we are the most taxpayer, and we are the people who have still kept the city of Ahmedabad vibrant in old city. That's it. That's so. Thank you very much for the 1 more minute that you have given me at the end of it. Thank you very much.
No, Jayendra bhai, I'm extremely sorry that somehow I don't know what happened, but time and again that
It's okay.
Professor Anil Roy had said that we don't have these two people, so maybe it happened while you were away. But many thanks that you came back. Many thanks that you spoke. You were essentially talking the same language that everyone is talking about. That there's a great need for something to happen, and you were saying that you are willing to make some contribution if something really gets going. And I think we are not going to forget this, and we were going to find a way.
I'm not going to
engage you.
contribute. We are ready to take up as a initiality, as a fresh approach. Till you
exactly
people
what I'm
try
saying.
to, bend government rules, we people try to promote ways, whatever it is, in whatever way it is at present. We have to make people aware what is there in Ahmedabad. There are more than almost 30% of Ahmedabad is a liquid population who has come in last 10, 15 years to live in city. And they don't know the real heritage of what is the value and all those things. Besides listening to hearing into Times of India or Ahmedabad Mirror or some paper about the heritage value of the city. But they don't have seen, neither they have seen it, nor they have done it. There should be school, excursion tours and all those things to make them understand. Every school must, make their people to visit, their students to visit once in a while, like what Abhay Bhai is planning and what other, city walks are there. They should be made. There should be a subject in the school also in Ahmedabad, all Ahmedabad. Right from 5th, 6th, or 7th standard, half an hour about the quiz, about the Ahmedabad heritage city and all those things. The awareness has to be there, then the things will come.
Yes. It's a very well said, Jayendra bhai. Very, very well said.
Jayendra, I'm so sorry. I was like looking at the participants. I missed out whether you
No.
were online.
Sir,
I'm
it
so
is not
sorry
your
for
fault.
that. Otherwise, we planned the sequence.
In between 3 times or for 15 minutes, I left the meeting and attended. So it could be that it doesn't make any difference. We are ready to do. You people just decide what are the things can be done at present in present conditions. I believe in whatever to do at present condition, right from wherever we are in stage, we can start something to show our, gratitude to the city and all those things. That's it. That's what I like.
Thank you, Jayendra bhai. Thank you for your spirit.
Okay,
and
fine.
I
Thank
very
you.
greatly value things.
Right,
So,
sir.
Anil, thank you very much, Bhaiya. I think it was a long day.
Yes.
And I see Riyaz also, Bhai Saab. Wonderful to see you. Rajiv Saab is still there. રાજીવ ભાઈ મળીએ કંઈક સમજીએ કે કેવી રીતે કરવું બધું હા so thank you very much.
Thank you so much.